Carpe diem, a Jegulus Podfic written by Els31 on AO3 and read by Hero Stories. Chapter 17. We share a last name. Summary. Sirius goes through the motions. Then he finally talks to his brother. Warnings for this chapter: descriptions of past child abuse, mental health issues, swearing, self-harm, implied suicide attempt. Sirius wasn't even 2 years old when Regulus was born. He can't say he remembers it at all, like lots of people probably wish he could. He doesn't remember his mother being pregnant. He doesn't remember them bringing him home from the hospital after he was born. He doesn't remember the first time he saw his baby brother. He doesn't remember if Regulus was a quiet baby or a loud one. He doesn't remember if Regulus slept through the night as an infant or kept them all up with endless wailing. Sirius doesn't even have any pictures of when they were babies. He couldn't even tell anyone when Regulus looked like as a baby. The oldest memory Sirius has of Regulus, somehow, despite their upbringing, is a good one. He was 6, Regulus had just turned 5, and they were upstairs the day after Regulus's birthday. Their parents had gone to bed, and as far as they were aware, their 2 sons were asleep in their own respective bedrooms. In reality, they'd stayed awake, and Regulus had snuck into Sirius's bedroom. Sirius had asked him to do so only after he was sure their parents were asleep, and to creep down the corridor as quietly as possible for a birthday surprise. Regulus had slunk in silently, face already split with the cheeky, beaming smile. After he closed the door and Sirius had motioned for him to over to the bed, the little boy came sprinting, practically leaping onto the bed and almost knocking them both flying. "Are you ready?" Sirius asked. In the low light of his bedroom, the soft glow from the lamp on the side table, he could see Regulus nod. A small giggle filled the room as he looked down at his little brother, so small, tiny even, sitting cross-legged on the bed in front of him, looking up at Sirius like he was a wonder. Sirius told Regulus to close his eyes. When he did, he pulled out the cupcake that Creature had got him to give to Regulus. Birthday cakes were not a thing in Grumble Place, but Sirius heard about a boy at school getting one. He wanted to do the same for Regulus. Impatient as always, Regulus didn't keep his eyes closed for long. When he opened them and saw the cupcake between them, Regulus gasped. But Sirius spoke before he could do anything else. "Wait," he said, and he pulled out the lighter that Creature lent him from the drawer. He flipped it open and sparked a fuse, holding it against the little wick on top of the candle. After, he held it out in front of Regulus. The orange glow between them lit up both their faces, creating shadows on their cheekbones. "Happy birthday, Rabbit," Sirius whispered, and his heart clenched when Regulus tore his eyes away from the cupcake to look at Sirius. The tears in his eyes danced as the tiny flame on the cupcake flickered and glowed. "For me?" "Of course," Sirius replied. "Now blow it out and make a wish." Regulus did as told. Afterwards, he looked up to Sirius and grinned, mischievous and cheeky again. "What did you wish for?" Sirius asked. "You said I'm not supposed to tell people, otherwise the wishes won't come true," Regulus argued, shaking his head. "That's other people, silly." Sirius rolled his eyes, poking him lightly in the shoulder and making him giggle. "You can tell me. I'm not people. I'm your big brother." "Okay," Regulus grinned and then whispered, "I wished for us to be together forever." "That's a waste of a wish, Rabbit," Sirius told him. Regulus frowned. "Why?" "Because we're always going to be together," Sirius said. It's you and me, remember? The two of us against the world. Nothing is going to ever split us up. Regulus stared at him, with eyes so wide they seemed at risk of falling out of his head. Promise? Sirius smiled, leaning forward so their foreheads were together. I promise. Sirius can't pinpoint the exact reason the lie started. He doesn't even know if he can even call it a lie in his defense. He never told anyone he didn't have a brother. No one asked, so he can't be called a liar for telling them Regulus didn't exist if he was never asked directly about it. He didn't lie, he just didn't tell the whole truth. He had opportunities, hundreds, thousands even, when he first met James, Remus, and Peter, and they introduced themselves. When Peter mentioned his younger siblings, and when Remus and James said they didn't have any. When they talked about where they were from, how many aunties and uncles and cousins they all had. All those times, Sirius could have spoken up and said he had a brother. Yet, he didn't. He stayed quiet and the conversation moved on every time. He could have mentioned Regulus the first time he met Effie and Monty, or Remus's mum, or Peter's. He could have brought it up 100 times, prompted or random. He could have mentioned Regulus, acknowledged he existed. But Sirius didn't. He couldn't. He doesn't think anyone will understand, especially now because it's been so long and his excuse seems so minimal compared to the consequence. When Sirius first met the Marauders at 11 years old, he saw the world in a different lead to his friend. The concept of family, parenting, punishment, it was also different for Sirius. He couldn't be whatever he wanted to be. He couldn't act like other children at home. His parents had molded him before, or he even had the chance to figure it out himself. When he started school and met 3 people that changed his life, within weeks he was able to be who he wanted to be. He could act, speak, think like Sirius. It was refreshing, addicting. Sirius became infatuated with the time he was able to be truly himself, to truly learn about himself. The Marauders allowed that. They embraced him and loved him and encouraged him this newfound boldness. Sirius had to box it away at home. He had to split himself in two. Padfoot at school and Sirius at home. It was exhausting, numbing, and Sirius knows it made him resent being at home. All he could ever think was why be at home after school with his mother would shut out and hit him for not standing straight enough, and his father would strike him with the cane, when he could go to James's for dinner, or hang out at Peter's, or go to Remus's mother's flower shop. Sirius hated Grimmauld Place. He hated his parents. He hated their opinions and belief. He didn't hate Regulus. At least, not for a while. Sirius didn't mean to drift apart from Regulus. Really, he didn't. He loved Regulus. He loved him so, so much when they were kids. Regulus was the light inside Grimmauld Place, the single space of fresh, breathing oxygen that kept Sirius from suffocating. Sirius never intended to leave behind that little kid that woke him up in the middle of the night when he had a nightmare, or the kid who chased butterflies in the garden, or the kid who cried when Andy cut her hair off when he was 7 and he couldn't play it anymore. That wasn't the regular Sirius left behind, though. That cute, gentle, sensitive boy was long gone by the time Sirius ran away from home. Sirius doesn't remember the transition much. He knows it didn't happen overnight, and deep down, he knows if he'd been around more, he would have noticed the change himself. He wasn't, though. He was too busy getting caught up in the freedom of living outside the walls of Grimmauld Place. He was too busy being his true self, unashamed and bold. Between the ages of 11 and 16, Sarah spent less and less time at home. He remembers the fallout when his parents announced Regulus was being sent to a different school, so he wouldn't be swayed like Sirius was. Sirius remembers comforting a sobbing, hysterical 10-year-old Regulus, telling his little brother that school he's being sent to is good too, that he will make loads of his own friends. Maybe, perhaps, it would be a good thing. Regulus would be able to branch out, self-express without any relation to Grimmauld like Sirius did. He wanted Regulus to find his own James, Remus, and Peter. Truthfully, Sirius doesn't know if he ever did. Sirius spent less and less time at home as he went through school, and when he was at home, he was too busy arguing with his parents or being locked in his room to be able to spend any length of time with Regulus. Regulus avoided him too. Whenever Sirius was at home, Regulus hid away, pretending Sirius didn't exist. Maybe it was payback, his own way of punishing Sirius for making his way in the world. Maybe Regulus hated him long before Sirius hated him back. By the time Sirius ran away, he hated everything inside Grimmauld Place. He hated his parents, who used him as a punching bag when he was a child, who belittled him and made him feel like he had less worth than a broom with no bristles. He hated Creature, who never did anything to protect them against the never-ending wrath of their parents for all those years. He hated Regulus, who changed in the every worst way imaginable. He looked at Sirius like their parents did, like he was a disappointment, like he didn't belong, and just his mere existence caused Regulus's exasperation. Regulus acted like their parents. He started telling Sirius it was his fault that their parents hid him, that they got angry because Sirius was unable to behave. He began to agree with their views, their opinions that belittled everyone and anyone who wasn't a member of the noble House of Black. Regulus became a person Sirius wanted to leave behind. Which is why Sirius didn't tell Regulus he was running away. By then, he didn't trust his little brother not to rat him out to their parents, who would have no doubt dragged him back, kicking and screaming, and locked him away for the rest of his miserable life. Once Sirius moved in with the Polis, he'd known them for 5 years. 5 years of keeping his home life a secret and everyone in it. When they found him on their doorstep, cheek still bruised from his father's cane and stomach rumbling from his mother's punishment of withdrawing his food, he fell apart. He told them everything about his parents, but he didn't bring himself to mention Regulus. Maybe it was shame. He'd not done it for so long, or fear that he'd be angry and make him go back and get him. Or shame they'd associate his brother with his parents. Sirius isn't sure. He was torn for a long time, flitting between hating Regulus and being ashamed of his brother, or fear his newfound family will hate him for leaving his brother behind. It was Andy that told him months later that their parents and Regulus had left London. Sirius used it as a way to put it all behind him. Regulus, as much as Sirius hated to admit it, was more loved by their parents. He had to be, right? If he vouched for everything they believed in and hated Sirius for not doing so, then Regulus would be fine. He wouldn't be a good person, and he'd become everything Sirius didn't want him to be, but in terms of physicality, Regulus would be fine. Right? As time passed, Sirius healed from his time at home. The physical wounds were gone in weeks. The mental, emotional ones stayed open and seeping for a few years. It took time and work, and the Polis never made Sirius ever feel like a burden for it. They made Sirius realize family is more than blood and DNA. Years flew by. Sirius grew. He changed in every way, shaking the mold and poison lingering to him from his time in Grimmauld. Truthfully, Sirius didn't feel like he could truly breathe until the Marauders moved to Yorkshire when they were 20. After 2 years of swapping between staying with Remus's family in Wales and London with Effie and Monty while James was travelling with Pete, the four of them reunited and decided to attend university in Yorkshire. After a year, Remus ended up moving back home to London when his epilepsy went through a rough patch, and being with his parents was the best option, moving his English course to online and studying at home. It took everything Sirius had not to follow him, but instead staying in Yorkshire with Peter and James to finish his art course. When they graduated, Peter wasted no time moving back to London to be with his siblings and mum. But James and Sirius stayed. James was thrown face first into first responding, and Sirius got a part-time job in a tattoo parlor to keep his mind busy. The move back to London was as spontaneous as the move away from it. Sirius didn't regret it one bit. He was close to Remus, close to the Potters, reunited with Peter again. The fear of bumping into his family was non-existent. It had been years, and last he heard, they were still rotting in France, like they had been for the last 8 years. So imagine Sirius' surprise when after all those years, most of them spent not even thinking about the boy he had grown up and shattered his heart to be the person James is infatuated with. For months, James had been spluttering on and on and on about this dreamy doctor, about the guy who swept him off his feet with mean scowls and sarcastic comments. The doctor James described as beautiful with huge eyes and dark hair and a fab ass. And as it turned out, this person is the same person who ripped Sirius' heart in two 9 years prior. When Sirius saw him step up in the pub on New Year's, all of Sirius' excitement was shattered. He was excited to finally meet the person who occupied all of James's thoughts. So when his little brother, the long-lost Rasmus, stepped up and James called him Regulus, Sirius's brain simply short-circuited. Of course, none of Sirius's reactions could soften the fallout. James was confused, furious, hurt by both Regulus's running away and Sirius's admission to never mentioning his brother existed. Sirius realizes he messed up, yet it was wrong of him not to tell them about Regulus. He knows it's a betrayal of trust, yet no one seemed to be trying to see it from his point of view. In that moment at the pub, it was like everyone forgot where Sirius came from, what he went through. All they could see was the stupid little brother running away like Sirius was the bad guy. Sirius warned them. He told them the truth about how Regulus really is. And yet, James didn't listen. 14 years of friendship, thrown away over a 3-month relationship. Sirius was angry. Remus took the brunt of it, and as he was the only person around while Sirius was avoiding James and the Lupin household, Sirius was a mixture of hurt, angry, confused, and, truthfully, scared. Mostly he was scared. Scared he was going to lose James, that Regulus being back in town also meant his parents were too. Seeing Regulus's face for 5 seconds in the middle of a pub knocked Sirius's world off its axis. He doesn't want to know what seeing his parents would do to him. Sirius spent 4 days at Remus's, either ranting so much no one could get a word in edgewise, or laying in a curled up ball on the bed so deep in his own head he was barely aware of Remus laying down with him. Remus let him moan and rant, listened to the shouts, and when he broke down, he held him close and pressed kisses into his hair. Remus didn't try to change his mind, to tell him he was wrong. He let Sirius project and melt out, let him scream and shout and cry. On day 4, After phoning into the tattoo parlor to say he'd need a few more days of sick and emailing his disappointed clients to rearrange dates, it was Remus who told him he needed to speak to James. "You can't keep hiding here, Pat," he whispers into his ear in the morning. "The two of you need to talk. I know James wants to. He doesn't want to lose you over this. The two of you are brothers, remember? Nothing bad will happen if you tell him how you feel. Or why you did all this. You think I'm wrong, don't you?" Sirius had asked. It was the first time he asked that, mostly because he was terrified of the answer. Above his head, he heard a sigh, so heavy he felt the deflation of the man's chest beneath his ear. I'm I'm angry at you about this too, Mooney said. Sirius stiffened. Stomach dropped to his toes. He'd lifted himself off of Remus's chest, sitting back, his head down as his boyfriend, feeling suddenly cold. While he knew he should have been Remus was angry too, it shocked him more than James being angry. "What?" "I'm your boyfriend, Sirius. We've been together for years, and you never said anything. There isn't a single thing about my life that you don't know about, and yet you never once mentioned that you have a younger brother," Remus said. "Do you understand how that makes me feel?" I. Sirius swallowed around the lump in his throat. "I didn't know how to bring it up. I didn't mention it at soon enough, and then so much time had passed that it felt wrong to bring it up." "That's not true," Mooney replies, shaking his head. He was looking up at him with an expression that didn't hold anger, just a mixture of annoyance and caution. That was worse. "There's something else. There's another reason why you're not saying because you don't think anyone is going to understand." Sirius had closed his eyes. Trust Mooney to be the one to call him out, to notice that he was saying isn't the whole truth. Knowing Mooney is angry too, knowing he's hurt the love of his life over this, makes Sirius suddenly feel compelled to spit it all out. He might have lost James, but he can't lose Mooney too. Uh, "I had a different life when I wasn't at Grimmauld," he started. "When I was around you guys, I was allowed to be a different person, to be myself. I didn't want to have to pretend to be someone I wasn't. Didn't have to pretend to be sophisticated or take hits for slouching my shoulders when I wasn't at home. I got, I enjoyed it. It was like I got to reinvent myself when I met you. Oh, I was scared that mentioning anything at home involving anything that would cause the two of them to merge somehow, my freedom, this new person would be ruined. That ended up involving not mentioning Regulus. He was part of Grimmauld. None of you guys met him and ever would, because my parents sent him to a different school. I I guess I was worried to begin that with that introducing him to you guys would make it easier for you all to figure out what my life at home was like. And I didn't want any of you to see that." Mooney looked up at him then, expression undecipherable. Sirius felt his palms begin to sweat, all because he knew he'd messed up by admitting it out loud. No one was going to understand. Perhaps it would have been unfair to expect them to, when they weren't in Sirius's shoes at the time. Creating a barrier between his life inside Grimmauld and outside was the only way to survive, because life inside Grimmauld was too harsh, too painful. It wasn't normal. Normal parents don't hit their kids, or lock them in cupboards, or starve them and slap and kick their kids. He didn't intend for Regulus to get left out of his life beyond Grimmauld Wall. And by the time he realized what he had done, it was too late. Reckless was already changed. already corrupted and ruined. He was molded without Sirius realizing it. You don't get it, Sirius sighed, rubbing the eyes. This is why I didn't want to explain it. You can't understand. Parts, I will never understand what it was like to grow up like you and Regulus did. Mooney had sighed. It is impossible for me to put myself in your shoes, so I don't know if I would have done what you'd done. Sure, 9 years is a long time to never admit having a brother, and yes, my first thoughts when you admitted to him being a criminal when you ran away was that he was left with your parents after knowing what they did to you. I was worried they'd done on the same to him. I believe, know you believe they wouldn't, but you said yourself they hurt you both when you were kids, so there's a chance they could dicks to him after you left. But the only person who can answer that is Reckless, and I won't lie, I can't see him being very eager to talk about it. You're taking his side? Mooney sighed heavily against him. No, Pat, and I don't do that. I'm not taking sides. All I'm saying is that yes, you lied to us, and yes, in a sense, you left your baby brother in the same house with the parents that beat you black and blue for shits and giggles. You understand that sounds bad, yeah? Yeah, but he's. I know, Mooney added. I know you said he became a nasty miniclone of them. Me and James know him as he is now. He's a doctor, Pat. You need to understand the struggle of connecting the baby brother you left behind and the person we know now. He's not a good person. I hate to break it to you, Pat, but he's not a bad one either. Mooney soothed gently. Effie loves him. James loves him. He's a pretty good doctor to me for years. Yeah, he's pretty rough around the edges, but there isn't anyone else I'd rather have look after me when I'm in the hospital. Sirius didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. As childish as he knows he is, he can't find a way to connect the person he knew so long ago to the person everyone is describing now. James forgives him easily. Maybe too easily. But Sirius isn't complaining. 4 days was too long without James, and Sirius will be damned if he lets it happen again. A few days after Sirius and James made up, Abby phoned to check in. Sirius was on the sofa catching up on drawings and sketches for clients when the mobile rang. It was the first time they'd spoken since the fallout, since crumbling of Sirius's past rearing its ugly, poisonous head. Truthfully, Sirius was just as scared to talk to Effie as he was everyone else. This was the woman who took him in without batting an eyelid, gave him a home and warmth and love. She became the mother he never had the day he met her when he was 11. Honestly, it was Effie who proved to him that what he had at home wasn't family. He was worried Effie was going to be angry that he lied to her, betrayed and fooled. He was worried she was going to hate him for being the monster that left his brother behind, that made her feel ugly for playing a part in allowing Reckless to stay with their parents. He was worried she was going to be angry. He said all those things to James about the doctor Effie had always praised about the doctor who makes Effie feel relaxed and at ease on shift. It was nothing like Sirius imagined, at first at least. Effie phoned when it was just Sirius in the flats. James had already been out for hours at Peter's mom's cafe. Sirius knew he went out simply for the sake of it. James had never been good at staying in for too long without feeling the need to start climbing the walls. It was small talk to begin with. Nice, easy, slightly pointless, but good nonetheless. It made Sirius feel safer, talking to her about pointless things. When she asked about how he was, and he spilled his guts out to her about it all, about James introducing them on New Year's, about Regulus being Rasselas, about fighting with James and hiding at Mooney's, she listened. patient and understanding, or at least she was understanding now that him and James were talking again. I I always had a hunch, she said after a while. Sirius stiffened on the sofa, frowning despite her not being able to see his face through the phone. What? I always had a hunch that Regulus was related to you in some way, she explained. You both look so similar, and when he first came to work with me in London, he acted so much like you did when you moved in with us. All the signs were there, even without your surnames being the same. Sarah's breath hitched as she spoke. Did she know the whole time? Why didn't you say anything? He croaked out. Through the phone, she let out a heavy, disbelieving sigh. For a moment, she sounded exasperated, but her tone was, when she spoke, is nothing but soft and patient. Because you never mentioned having a brother, and when Regulus said he didn't have any family, I assumed it was his unspoken wish to keep it that way. She said, he'd gotten away from his parents much like you did. He was terrified and guarded, and why it broke my heart. But he was free from them. It wasn't my place to bring you two together. Franklin seemed content with being in of the opinion he had no family, and you were so deep in your lie about not having a brother. I'm sorry, Sirius whispered, eyes burning with tears, now threatening to spill. You've done so much crying since New Year's. You don't have to apologize to me, darling, she replied. Your lie didn't hurt me in the slightest. It must have, Sirius wanted to argue. Everyone seemed hurt after the truth came out. Everyone looked at him like he'd betrayed them, like he'd stabbed them in the back and twisted the knife for 9 years. I could have said something, he argued weakly. What would you have done? Truthfully, Sirius doesn't know what he would have done if Effie had told him years ago that his baby brother was working with her. Would he have accepted it? Would he have run away from London again? Would he have confronted Regulus? I don't know, he admitted, but You're my son, Sirius, she interrupted softly, and before words had Sirius letting out a soft sob. You know I'd support you in every way possible, because you're mine in every way but blood. This time, but this is your lie. You make your bed, and I'm afraid it wasn't my place to stop you from lying in it. All I could do was make sure the two of you were okay, separately. Sirius wanted to laugh at that. Effie Porter, always a mother to anyone in need. Sirius supposed he shouldn't be surprised. His living proof she has a weak spot for strays. His heart ached then. The realization that Effie began to do for Regulus what Sirius did for years when they were kids. She'd looked after him, despite being older and an adult. She did for him what Sirius spent so much time doing. What he thought his purpose was as an older brother. Deep down, no matter how much Sirius hated Regulus for who he became in Grimmauld, he was grateful that Effie was the one who was there to keep his head above water when he came back to London. Thank you, he whispers, voice barely audible, for looking after him, Mike. Thank you. Of course, she replied easily. Then she sighed, tired and long as if she was hurting herself. He's a good person, Sirius. I know you don't believe that. I know he hurt you, and so did your parents. I know, something has kept you back all these years from admitting it. But whoever that was that you ran away from when you were 16 isn't the same boy anymore. You believe that? I know that, my love. I work with him. I've seen it hundreds of times every day. He's been my best colleague since before he got his degree. She paused, voice becoming impossibly gentle, as if she was trying to soothe a hysterical child. And James would tell you the same. If you trust us, you believe it too. Sirius doesn't need to believe them. He sees it for his own eyes a week later in the hospital with Remus. Sirius won't lie. When Regulus appeared out of nowhere in shrubs and was crouching down in front of Remus, Sirius felt completely blindsided. He'd forgotten that Remus had mentioned Regulus being a doctor on the neurology ward. He was panicking, practically hysterical, when he was shouting at the receptionist. And no one was listening, so Sirius naturally was freaking out at everyone. And then Regulus was there, calling his name and making Sirius's words tails on axis. He knew he looked a mess. That his face was a mix of tears and snot and flushed cheeks. He'd been running his hands through his hair for ages, so no doubt he looked like he touched a live wire with the way it was probably standing up in all directions. Sirius didn't even have a chance to ask Regulus anything before his younger brother was barreling off questions. Sirius felt his brain was disconnected, the answers stumbling out of his mouth in a sputtering mess. Regulus looked so serious, his tone calm, but hinted with urgency and authority that made Sirius feel small and stupid. Then Regulus was getting someone to help them a bed before demanding orders with a crisp expertise that made Sirius's heart fall to the pit of his stomach, because despite finally being listened to, it made the realization that something is seriously wrong with Remus come to front in his mind. Once the Remus ceased again, it was Regulus who helped. He jumped straight into action, getting him on the floor and looking after him. Sirius was shaking so bad he could barely hold the blanket up in front of them as a makeshift shield. Before Sirius could blink, the space around him is a flurry of activity. It's the attention he wanted Remus to get, but still made him shake and slow down sobs. Then they were moving, Remus prone on the bed and making everything feel so scary and real. When Regulus stopped him from going into the room with Remus, Sirius could have punched him. When Regulus shut down his argument with reason, Sirius just crumbled. Yet Sirius did as he was told. He spoke to the nurse who asked all the questions about Remus's medical history. He stayed out of the way when they said he couldn't go into the recess. He phoned Effie, who patiently answered all his questions and eased his worries. It wasn't until Remus was settled in a bed on the neurology ward, hours later, that Sirius finally began to process what had happened. In the silence of the private hospital room, with Remus asleep, on the only sound to be heard was his breathing and the beeping of machines. Sirius had no option but to spiral. Normally, when Remus gets this sick, whenever he ends up in the hospital with Sirius by his side, Remus is the only thing Sirius can see when he closes his eyes. Not this time. This time, every flash time Sirius closed his eyes, all he could see was Regulus flashing as fast as strobe lights in his head, repeating and repeating, from the small child Sirius once knew to the teenager he ran away from, when morphing into the grown man in scrubs, saving the love of his life. Sirius is not ashamed to admit he is hiding in Remus's hospital room. He should probably leave to go to the bathroom or get a coffee or take a walk to keep the circulation going in his legs, but he's too nervous. He's too nervous because Regulus is out there, that on his ward, in his workspace. Sirius doesn't want to invade the space that Regulus is more entitled to than he is. Plus, if anything was to happen between them, Sirius knows it will be him that gets dragged out by security and not Regulus. He can't risk not being there for Mooney. Realistically, that's a perfect excuse. Nurses come and go, like the entrance to Mooney's room is a revolving door, endless tests, endless checkups, numbers and bloods and medications. Sirius sits up silently, patiently, waiting for him to wake up. He watches Remus for a while, just relishing in the relief that he's stable, that he's being looked after, and is resting peacefully. He looked so ill earlier, so pale and glazed and clammy. Every time Sarah spoke to him, it was like the lights were on, but no one was home. Like he was staring through everything he saw. It was eerie. It was absolutely terrifying. Even when they got to the hospital, Sarah's worry didn't ease with having to sit in the waiting room with Mooney so unresponsive. Now, despite the fear and trepidation of something else being in Remus' epilepsy is going to harm him and his health, Mooney looks better. The older boy lays in the bed, attached to the IV drips in his arm and sticky monitors to his chest. A nasal cannula settled on his face, but his expression is relaxed, soft, his breathing is even, and his lips aren't blue anymore. His exhausted limbs are settled and still, covered in hospital blankets and cradled on the bed. He's safe. And it's a damn hell better than he was a few hours ago. While you wait, sitting in the silent room, listening to the beeping machines and Remus's slow breathing, Sirius phones Mrs. Lupin to give her another update. Naturally, as his mother, she's worried, but at Sirius' assurance about Remus' improving condition, she calms and promises to come later after she's finished with the wedding sets that are due to be ready for transport tonight. Once he's finished speaking to her, he texts James and Peter that Remus has been admitted and is laying overnight. Suddenly, the sheet next to him is rustle, and Sirius's head snaps up from his phone and to see Mooney's head turning slightly, his fingers twitching and eyes fluttering. Sirius puts his phone away and moves closer, taking the hand close to him and stroking it as he waits. Hey, Sirius murmurs, giving the hand a reassuring squeeze and slowly rubbing the rest of his arm. Hi, love. You're alright. You're safe. Blurry, glazed eyes blink up at the ceiling. For a moment, they don't seem to see anything. Mooney's eyes travel around the room, curious and slowly focusing. Finally, they land on Sirius, and all the tension in Sirius' body drains out of him. Hi, he smiles. Sirius? I'm here, he replies, inching close and barely resisting the urge to leap up and take Mooney in his arms. What? Mooney asked, voice barely a slurred croak, but Sirius knows what he's saying. It's not unusual for Mooney not to remember having anesthesia. With how many he's had today, Sirius won't be surprised if he can't recall as far as when he woke up this morning. You had a seizure. A few, actually. One at your mom's shop, and another few here. Sirius explains softly as he helps Mooney sip water out of a straw and cup. It's okay now. When the cup is drained, Mooney asks, Status? Yeah. Sirius nods. Scared the shit out of me. Sorry, Mooney breathes, blinking slowly but gold clear in his expression. I didn't. Not your fault. Sirius interrupts softly but firmly. He strokes Mooney's hair, soothing him and not satisfied until he watches his boyfriend melt into the pillows. It's never your fault, sweetheart. Don't be sorry, okay? I'm just happy you're okay. For a few moments, Mooney just blinks slowly. He seems more lucid at the moment, and Sirius relaxes further. This is normal, and just seeing his eyes open is a crushing relief. When? Mooney asks. Started this morning at your mum's. We've brought you here, but A&E was so busy we ended up in the waiting room for so long you had another one down there. They took you into recess, and you've been up here for a few hours. Mooney hums, then blinks his eyes open. Effie in? No. Sirius shakes his head, then with a heavy weight of anxiety in his stomach he adds. Regulus is, though. Regulus? Yeah, he was the one that helped me downstairs. He recognized you in the waiting room and got you into recess. Oh. Mooney mumbles. Then it seems to sink in. He grins widely. What a champ! Sirius huffs a laugh at the small, simple statement. Thought you was a good doctor, Mooney says, smirk. Sirius can't help but roll his eyes fondly. You did. I'm always right. Sure, love. I am. Anyway, Sirius agrees easily. He can't help but find this version of Remus, deliriously tired, pumping to his eyeballs on medication, and loopy as hell, absolutely adorable. What's the time? I don't have to go yet. Good, Mooney smiles, doubtfully, looking more and more sleepy by the second. Love you. Inside his chest, his heart bursts. Love you too. The next day, Sirius is back at the hospital the moment visitation times commence. He beelines straight to Mooney's room, trying to not be too disheartened to see him still asleep. Sirius is happy he's getting rest, and the bags under his eyes vouch enough for needing it, but the selfish part of him wants Mooney awake to hear his voice and his smile. He wants the confusion from the seizures to be gone from Mooney's eyes. He wants to see him clear and focused. He wants Mooney awake so he can make sure he's okay. Still, Sirius sits silently at the bedside, eyeing the beeping monitors still beside the bed. He's no doctor, but they've done this dance enough time to know what the numbers should look like, and he relaxes back, seeing there's nothing to be concerned about. Mooney wakes a little after 10, and Sirius has just finished texting James and Peter, updating them on Mooney's condition this morning and feeling comforted by their promised visit later after Peter's morning shifts at the cafe. It's a little after lunch when the nurse takes Mooney for another scan. They wheel him out in a wheelchair, and Sirius is only alone for 5 minutes before the door opens again. Afternoon, Pat, he greets. Where's Mooney? They've taken him for another scan, Sirius explains. They said it was a precaution, I'm guessing so they can make sure everything is as good to send him home. Ah, good. He nods, sitting on one of the chairs on the other side of the empty bed. How are you doing? Sirius shrugs. Tired, worried. Nothing compared to what Mooney went through, though, so I'm not complaining. I bet. Been all morning? Sirius nods. A moment of silence passed between them, even without either of them speaking. Sirius can't help but feel that there is something hanging in the room, unsaid and anticipating. He doesn't have to wait long to find out what it is. Me and Sirius saw your brother outside, Rita says suddenly. Immediately, Sirius stiffens. That, surprisingly, was not what he was expecting. James talking to him now, he adds. Peter. You've spoken to him? Peter asks, bulldozing over Sirius' attempts at stopping him. You know, if I'd not seen one of my brothers or sisters for 9 years after abandoning them, I'd be pretty ambitious to be chasing them around the hospital just to speak to them again. Sirius bit the inside of his cheek in frustration. I spoke to him downstairs. Really? Peter doesn't look all too convinced. Sirius nods. He looked after Mooning in the waiting room. Peter's eyes widen. Seriously? Sirius nods. I didn't realize he was going to be on shift yesterday, or that he would be down A&E. Was he a prick? Not really. Sirius shrugs. He was just doing his job. Peter makes a noise. What? It's been quite a shock to see a brother that you've been slandering constantly about being the scum of the earth to come back in and save your boyfriend, Peter says, tone nonchalant and innocent, but Sirius can't hear the way it's condescending. It would almost seem bizarre, as if he has changed from when he was 15. How bizarre! Sirius can't help but wince. He didn't expect this from Peter. He's the only one who hasn't said anything serious about the brother situation. The only one who hasn't been involved. Sirius assumed it was mostly to do with the fact that out of all four of them, Peter is the one with no connections to Regulus. The first time he met his brother was on New Year's, and Peter seems to have spent all the time since supporting James, like Mooney has supported Sirius. Honestly, Sirius has been waiting for something, but he wasn't expecting to hear the anger, the bite, or annoyance in Peter's tone. Sirius kept his younger brother a secret from Peter too, so Sirius has been waiting for Peter to call him out for lying about it. Peter sounding like he's defending Regulus? Sirius hadn't expected that. Wormtail, please don't. Sirius whispers shakily, but it's futile. There's a fire inside Peter's eyes as he glares at Sirius from across the room. It's the same look he gets when one of the kids are upset from somewhere. Or when someone tries to start a fight with one of the marauders on a night out. Don't what? Peter snaps suddenly, voice loud and abrupt, making Sirius flinch. Don't have an opinion on the fact that you abandoned your younger brother with your abusive parents, proceeded to tell no one he existed, including your best friends, the people that took you into life, and your boyfriend. And then when he finally pops into your life again, as someone who everyone knows him now has assured you he is nothing like the demonic clone of your parents you believed him to be, you refuse to listen and to keep throwing hissy fits like a fucking toddler? When Sirius doesn't say anything, Peter doesn't hesitate to reply on. I know what it's like to have siblings at Podfic. You can't fool me with this bullshit you're telling everyone else. There is nothing in the world any of my siblings could have done that would have resulted in me abandoning them with a set of sick, sadistic parents. Peter hisses, voice spitting and eyes glaring. It doesn't matter that he was a cunt or that he acted like your parents. He was your brother, flesh and blood. He wasn't meant to have your unconditional love, which, as I'm assuming you don't understand what it is, means he didn't have to fucking earn it. It was unconditional love. Seriously, it was always unconditional love within, until he turned into someone who didn't know what love is. Peter scoffs. Come off it, Sirius. Did you ever sit back and ask Jegulus if he was okay before you left when you realized he was changing? Did you not think to talk to him about it? Of course I did, Sirius cries. Whenever I tried to talk to him, he told me to fuck off. He insulted me, told me I was a burden to the family, that all I did was cause everyone pain when I was at home. He told me it was my fault our parents beat us. I need to abide by their rules and opinions and stay quiet. What if he did that to protect himself? Peter asks. He holds a hand up when Sirius opens his mouth to speak. Hear me out, Pat. Your parents were vile. They beat you up, starved you, threatened to hurt each of you to the other to get you to behave. Have you ever thought that maybe Regulus said all that, acted like that, told you to act like that to protect himself, to protect both of you? Sirius feels frozen in horror as Peter's words sink in. Surely not, he thinks. Please, he prays. Please don't let that be true. Please don't be true that I was so blind to not see what was happening, what he was doing. He didn't need to do that, he whispers. I protected him. You weren't there all the time, Sirius, Peter argues, tone out gentle and cautious. You had us. You admitted yourself when all about the time Regulus was there alone. Sirius thinks back to the last years they lived together. There was no way Regulus was good at pretending to agree with them. There was no way he didn't believe what they said, believed Sirius was the one causing problems. No one is that good at pretending. Why didn't he tell me? Sirius asked. If it was all an act, why didn't he tell me? Maybe he tried, Peter shrugs. I don't know, mate. The way you two dream up was normal. Your actions to things are stemmed from that. You two spent so long growing up in survival mode. Perhaps it was the only way he thought he could keep himself safe. Sirius drops his head into his hands, curling up like a dying animal in a chair. His mind is going a mile a minute All his thoughts, scattered memories, flashes, moments, are consume his vision and his consciousness. He probably wasn't expecting you to run away from him as a consequence of it. I didn't run away from him, says Countess, shaking his head but not looking up. Peter sighs. You did, though, Sirius. You left in the middle of the night and disappeared. You don't need to justify why you did it, considering what it was like in that house, but you can't deny you ultimately ran away from Regulus too. Sirius's chest feels tight as his heart inside it shatters. It feels like he's made of stone, so heavy and so exhausting. His hands shake as they cradle his head. His eyes burn with hot, unshed tears. His throat suddenly thick. He feels like he's suffocating. Every part of him is falling apart, crumbling. He used to be such a good kid, Sirius whispers wetly. You can't tell if he's about to burst into sobbing, ugly tears or throw the chair he's sitting in against the walls. Exactly, Peter agrees, and when Sirius looks up at him, his friends flash him a sympathetic smile. He was a good kid. He wasn't born the way you saw him when you left. He changed growing up because of that house, and you could have helped him undo the damage your parents did. Although by the sounds of it, he didn't need you. He did it by himself. He got out and got a bloody medical degree and swooped James Potter off his feet. Sirius suddenly can't breathe. Good kid. Helped him undo the damage. You could have helped. You could. He need you. He did it himself. He got out. He got out. Sirius lets out a shaky, wet breath. He feels overwhelmed, heavy and light at the same time. His world has crumbled, collapsed, and disappeared from around him. Yet he also feels like the walls closing in on him have been blown back. Peter's words were blunt, but Sirius never expects anything less from the Scots. Yet, he said everything Sirius needed to hear. He just summarized his little brother in a few sentences, and he couldn't have done it any better. He always was going to be more successful than me, Sirius says. But it doesn't come out bitter, like he always assumed it would. It comes out fond, teasing, smug. Trust him to finally break away from the class of Walburga just to come to London and become a successful bloody doctor. And he thanked him. Sirius shakes his head, not looking up from his lap. No, I don't want to upset him at work. Honest, we both know it's not going to be a very happy altercation between the two of us, and he's got people to look after. He doesn't need to deal with this too. How very mature of you, Peter deadpans. He shrugs when Sirius flashes him a deadpan glare. Well, I'm allowed to be surprised after all the stuff that has happened. Sirius rolls his eyes. But then the door opens and the conversation, thankfully, is dropped. The nurse wheels Mooney in, and Sirius can't help but grin at the sight of him. He looks much better than he did even just a few hours ago, and miles better than the sorry state he was a day ago. Hey, Sirius murmurs softly, moving himself and the chair out of the way so the nurse can bring the wheelchair up to the head of the bed. All right, Mooney? Peter asks. Not too shabby, Remus replies, and the two of them match his grin. Remus' brightening mood seems to eliminate any of the lingering tension from the conversation between Peter and Sirius. Everything all right? Sirius asks at the nurse as Remus climbs back into the bed. She nods and smiles. His doctor will need to review it, but we're not expecting anything out of the ordinary. It's just a tick box to make sure he's doing well enough to go home. Good. Sirius breathes in relief. He knows this already, but it's reassuring to hear it again. Mooney is going to be okay. Despite everything that's going on, at least that is going well. Where's James? Mooney asks, when he's fully settled back in bed as the nurse has left. I'll be back in a minute, Peter replies, and true to his words, after a few minutes of the two of them catching up, the door opens. James slithers in like he was planning on going unnoticed. His expression is pinced, his lips turned down, and his eyes glistening as if they held tears a few moments ago. You alright, mate? Peter asks. James nods, despite the fact that he does not look alright at all. Sirius wants to ask what happened, what Regulus has done now, but he doesn't dare. He's still reeling from the new hole Peter abruptly ripped into him a few moments ago, and he doesn't fancy making it worse. When James' eyes immediately fall to Mooney, he smiles. How are you doing, Moonies? He asks. Mooney shrugs, flashing them all a small, tight smile. Been better, been worse. Can't wait to go home, that's for sure. I bet. James nods. Your parents been in? They came in for a bit last night, but I don't remember much of it, to be honest. Mooney explains. I'm sure they'll be back in today. When are they discharging you? Peter asks. Tomorrow is the plan, Mooney sighs, when he looks at Sirius sadly, silently saying, tomorrow is not soon enough. Sirius just flashes him a crunching smile and holds his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Nice, mate, Peter grins brightly. If they let you out before lunch, I think it will be a smart idea for us to treat you to a bite of lunch, yeah? Get some food, decent food in you instead of all the crap the hospital gives you. I'd kill for Mama Pettigrew Toasty, Mooney smirks. Peter winks. Ah, the boy. After Remus's hospital admission, it follows with a week of sulking. Peter's words at the hospital stick with him, a repeating mantra of constantly in his mind, like a faulty record that won't stop playing and playing and playing. Sirius can't decide how it feels. He's gotten whiplash from his own thoughts, his own spirals. One minute he feels so riddled with guilt for leaving Regulus, fear for the consequence of their parents' hands, that he feels crippled with nausea. Then it's like his mind switches back. His mind overcome with the conclusion that Regulus was happy there. He must fit in with his family more than Sirius ever did. All he can think about is the fear of his parents, that he had to get out of the house before they killed him. That Regulus wouldn't have come with him. Then switches back to the guilt that he never asked, that he never even offered, he never tried. Guilt, fear, anger, regret, guilt, fear, anger, regret, guilt, fear, anger, regret, guilt, fear, anger, regret, guilt, anger, regret. It's exhausting. He distracts himself with work as best he can, but even that doesn't seem to ease the torment in his head. Despite the down spiral and endless thinking, Sirius would be blind to miss the fact that James is moody, reserved, spending all of his time in either his room or with Peter at the cafe. Sirius is sure he's mad at him, but James is never around long enough for Sirius to ever ask. In hindsight, he doesn't need to ask. He knows exactly what the problem is, and it's the same problem that's been brewing since New Year's. James hasn't forgiven Sirius for never telling him about Regulus, and the longer that James goes without seeing Regulus, the more he's beginning to resent Sirius for it. Sirius supposes he shouldn't blame James for it. He lied to his best friend for 14 years. It was always going to have some repercussions. Sirius just didn't, because he's starting to miss his best friend. Sirius is able to distract himself at work, and he's happy he's been able to rein in his emotions in enough to go back after taking the sick leave after New Year's. His clients weren't impressed with the rearrangement, but the discount seemed to sedate their complaints enough. Sirius is just coming in from work when he sees James come scurrying out of his room, dressed up and pocketing his wallet. Where are you going? Sirius asks. James looks at him, suddenly looking like a deer caught in the headlights. His friend opens and closes his mouth a few times, fingers twitching against the cuff of his coat. Then he squares his shoulders as if bracing himself. I'm going out of Regulus, James says. Sirius feels his heart turn cold. Oh, what? You heard me, Sirius, James replies. James, don't do this, Pat. James whispers, shaking his head. Please, I'm begging you, don't put me in the middle of this again. I don't know what you want me to do to make this better for you without hurting myself. I don't want to hurt you, Sirius admits. Then let me go tonight, James replies. Let me go, and don't hate me for it. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. Sirius closes his eyes tightly. Okay, he murmurs. He opens his eyes and looks at James across the floor. His best friend looks a mix between nervous and defiant, as if he's ready for the fight he's prepared to have about getting out while being terrified of it. Sirius crosses the room, slings his jacket over the back of the sofa, and dropping down onto the cushions. Not wishing you to have a good time, though, he grumbles. James smiles, seemingly relieved. I can live with that. I'll see you later, okay? Will you be back tonight? Sirius asks as he swipes the keys from the pot and stands by the front door. I don't know. Okay, Sirius says again. And then he's gone. Sirius doesn't know how much time passes while he's sitting on the sofa. The door opens behind him, startles him out of his staring at the coffee table. He looks over his shoulder to see Mooney coming in, smiling when he notices Sirius looking at him. Hey, love, he says. Evening, Sirius replies, tone clipped. A quick glance at the clock shows that it's almost 8 in the evening now. Mooney freezes mid-step away from the door, frowning at Sirius, the lovely smile dropping from his face. Why do you look like that? Like what? Like you phoned the police of committing a crime and now you're waiting for the police to break down the door and arrest you. Sirius huffs, shaking his head. He's not in the mood for jokes or games. He turns back forward and continues glaring at the floor like it's personally offended him. Behind him, Mooney sighs. There's the sound of keys clacking in the pot and approaching footsteps before Mooney drops down beside him. What's going on, Pat? Sirius pauses, engouching on his thumbnail to spit out. James is out with Regulus. Ah, Mooney nods knowingly, which only pisses Sirius off even more. Left hours ago. Mooney hums. Have you been here sitting like that ever since? No. That's a yes then, Mooney muses, and when Sirius's head snaps to glare at him, the old man shrugs. You do realize that he's likely to be out all night. I know, Sirius grumbles. You can't sit here all night and stew like this, Pat. I know, okay, Sirius shouts, throwing his hands up in frustration. I fucking know, I just... Sirius breaks himself off of a strangled shout, dropping his head in his hands. His shoulders ache from the tension that's kept him taut for hours. His back is twitching from sitting half hunched on the sofa since James left. He feels like a wound-up children's toy, so tight and coiled he's going to snap any moment now. His head is beginning to pound, and he reaches up to tug the strands of hair, barely refraining from letting out a childish scream and kicking over the coffee table in front of him. There's a hand gently untangling his fingers, pulling them away from his hair. The action is small, but makes Sirius melt, the tension draining from his shoulders slightly. Pat, Mooney says softly, talk to me. Just lifts his head, letting out a shaky breath. Now I know who's out with, who it really is. I can't stop thinking about it. About the fact that Pronk is shagging your little brother. Honestly, I feel like I can't even play that card, Sirius admits. He wonders what it's like to play the big brother role again. I'm just worried. But James? Sirius nods. I don't want him to get hurt. Why are you already assuming Regulus is going to hurt him? Because it's what he does, Sirius growls. It's how they raised him. Sirius. Remus shakes his head. I don't know how many times we need to remind you that the 15-year-old you left is not the same as the 23-year-old that we know now. He's awful, Mooney. Sirius croaks. No, Mooney shakes his head. He was awful, Podfoot. Plus, you talk about how you went from the sweet kid who used to be your whole world, and now you are his. If he managed to do a 180 change from that to the monster you described, what's to say he couldn't do a whole 360 and turn back into the person you loved? Sirius sighs, closing his eyes when Peter's words from the hospital bombard him once more. James is a good judge of character, Mooney adds, rubbing Sirius's knee close to him. You need to trust him. Sirius swallows thickly. Sirius always is the good enough one. But I don't, Mooney reminds him, tilting his head. And I'm telling you now, Regulus is a good person. Yeah, he can be a bit of a prick, and I'm pretty sure he could tone down the glaring and eye-rolling. But that doesn't make him a bad person. You're making it sound like Regulus sought James out to hurt you. We both know he couldn't have done that, considering he didn't know you or your friends. He's already hurt James before. Mooney shrugs, slouching on the sofa. Yes, but James has told us about that. It was a moment of fear on Regulus's part, and James made it sound like he was pretty apologetic afterwards. Look, James might be a bit of a softy, but he isn't the type to take shit from people lying down. If Regulus was such a bad person, James wouldn't still be seeing him. Plus, me and Effie wouldn't be vouching for him too. Sirius deflates like a punctured balloon. Everything Mooney is saying, as annoying as it is, Sirius can't argue with. Truthfully, that isn't an opinion in the world that he would trust more than Mooney's or Effie's. James, Effie, Mooney, and Peter, they're all saying it. Is it possible that Regulus has changed? Their parents projected their outdated and horrific opinions, the homophobia, the racism, the egotistical classism against anyone beneath upper class workers. Regulus seems to soak it up in the last few years Sirius lived with him. He nodded when the parents spoke, didn't argue with their horrible opinions. He agreed like a parrot and told Sirius he should too, because arguing with them caused trouble. If Regulus still believes those things, would he be seeing James? Would he be polite to James and Effie? Right? Come on, Mooney says suddenly, clapping Sirius gently on the knee and climbing off the sofa. You can't sit there all night stressing about it. James isn't coming home tonight, and I think it's safe to say he's going to be too distracted to text you anyway. Sirius rolled his eyes. He did not need to be point out to him. Mooney, you eaten yet? Mooney asked from where he's rifling through the drawer onto the TV where they keep the menus. I'm going to order Chinese. I'm really craving sweet and sour chicken balls. Sirius slumps down on the sofa, mending the feed. When Mooney comes back, phone and menu in hand, he relaxes back into the sofa cushions and drags Sirius with him. Sirius melts, allowing Mooney to manipulate him so he's curled into his side, Mooney's arms around his back and stroking his flank soothingly. I think I need more distraction than just food, Sirius murmurs. Don't worry, sweetheart, Mooney smirks. I plan on keeping you well and truly distracted all night. We just need some fuel first. Sirius looks up. Is that so? Food first. Fine. James comes home the next afternoon. Mooney managed to keep Sirius distracted as he promised, but when he had to leave in the morning to go to his mom's shop, Sirius went right back to stressing and fretting until the front door went just over for 3 in the afternoon. James looks tense as he walks in. For a moment, Sirius fears his worries came true and Regulus did something to hurt his best friend. But then, with sinking stomach, he realizes James is looking at him with a gutting kind of trepidation. Regulus isn't the problem for James right now. Clearly, the problem is Sirius. Again. Sirius inwardly sighs from his spot on the sofa. He watches with twinging nerves as James tosses his keys in a pod by the door, walking across the floor to his bedroom. He disappears inside, and for a moment, Sirius waits for the door to slam shut. It doesn't. James comes out as quick as he went in, jacket missing and shoes off. Do you want a cup of tea? Sirius asks, hoping to diffuse the sudden, suffocating awkwardness. James nods. Yeah, sure. Sirius practically leaps off the sofa and scurries into the kitchen, suddenly desperate for something to do. So he starts after he's filled up the kettle. How was? You need to talk to Regulus. Sirius spins around to face him. What? Why? No, listen to me. James interrupts, and he looks so damn serious and tense it makes Sirius want to flee from the room. You need to talk to Regulus. It needs to come from you, Pats. The two of you need to talk, need to sort whatever happened 9 years ago, because your opinion of him, quite frankly, is outdated and twisted by your views of your parents. I'm staying with Regulus. For me, he isn't going anywhere. I don't think you understand what he went through after you left, and if him being here with a new name and a life away from your parents isn't enough proof that you've got the wrong idea of him, then you need to speak to him so he can tell you. Prongs. Sirius starts, shaking his head, but James plows on as if he never spoke. You kept him a secret, Sirius. James practically seethes. He was a kid. Whatever you say he believed in from your parents, it could have been undone. It has been undone. He did it himself. He got out, but if you bloody told someone about him, he could have gotten out when he was 15 instead of 18 and at the ends of his fucking wits. Sirius blinks in surprise, barely refraining from taking a step back at the venom in his friend's voice, at the volume of his shouts. James never shouts. He never raises his voice, especially at his friends. Most importantly, never at Sirius. You had every right to run away. I don't want you to feel like you didn't, and you know you were always welcome with us. I wouldn't change a thing, and I would never change you coming to us while you were safe. James sighs suddenly, running a hand through his hair frantically. I know you believe he's a bad person, and maybe he was. Maybe he was a kid then. You were both kids, Pats. You were living in a shit place, and you both got out. He's not your parents. He's his own fucking person, and it's a fucking good one. He won't speak to me, Sirius argues. Maybe not, James shrugs. But you need to try. How? I can give you his number. I don't think bombarding him at work will achieve much. Not just for you to do, huh? It's a reserve position, yes. James grins, then his face falls again. So, will you? Text him, I mean. Okay, Sirius murmurs. Do I have to do it now? Yes, James nods, pulling his phone out of his back pocket. Before you psych yourself out of it and we're back to square one. James holds out his hand expectantly, and a moment later, Sirius finally jolts into action and hands his phone over. He watches as James puts Regulus' number into his contact. He opens his messages apps and holds the phone out back to Sirius. The name on the screen glares back at him in tiny, mocking writing. Surprisingly, it hasn't taken Sirius long to transition from calling his little brother Rassilus to Regulus. Now, new name holds a whole new ballpark of terror. I'm scared, Sirius whispers, eyes flitting up to meet his best friends. I know, it's... James lets out a heavy breath and a bitter laugh. This is a bloody mess, I won't lie, Pat. This is all... It's not your fault. Not all of it, at least. You were a kid too, don't forget that. Sirius raised an eyebrow. But you're an adult now, James shrugs. It's time you start acting like it. Sirius scoffs, shaking his head. You don't understand, Prongs. No, I don't. James nods. I didn't live there. I didn't go through what you two did. The only person who can really understand you is the person you refuse to talk to. I said I'd text him. Sirius grumbles petulantly. Good. James smiles. Then do it. Grumbling still, Sirius snatched the phone. His fingers tremble slightly, heart pounding stupidly. He freezes, fingers hovering above the keys. What did I say? Just ask the meet. Say you want to talk, James shrugs. Leave all the talking for when you see him. Sirius sighs, James making it sound so easy. Sirius, 1503. It is Sirius. James gave me a number. I was hoping we could meet up and talk. How's this? Sirius asks, showing his phone. James reads it and nods. Yeah, send it. Sirius's stomach drops as he presses the send button. I did it, Sirius says, and the confession comes out small and childlike. Timid. He keeps staring down at the phone, the words staring back at him, mocking and foolish. Her hand gently claps him on the shoulder, and he looks to see James staring at him with huge, sympathetic eyes. Suddenly, his best friend grins. That was much easier than I thought it was going to be. Oh, fuck off! Sirius rolls his eyes, shrugging off James's hand, despite the words not holding much heat. He tosses his phone on the counter and turns back to the half-made tea. You're such a dick. You love me. Sirius rolls his eyes again, turning back around to hand James the cup of tea. He flashed him a slight smirk. I guess I do. It takes Regulus 3 days to reply. 3 whole days. 72 hours. 4,320 minutes. Considering the state Sirius had managed to get himself into in that time, the reply was vastly anticlimactic. Regulus. 07:14. Nova Cafe next Thursday at 2 p.m. That's the earliest he'll be able to see you, James explains, when Sirius tells him the news, complaining about that he now has to suffer another 5 days of stressing about what's to come. He's on a run of 5 shifts now. I think he's on a night shift on Wednesday too. That's why he said to meet in the afternoon. Sirius bristles. He should never have done this. He shouldn't have let James talk him into this. It's going to be a disaster, he knows it. You've waited this long. You survived not speaking to the guy in 9 years. You can at least last a few more days. Mooney supplies unhelpfully when Sirius is suffering with the idea later that night. I'm scared, Sirius whispers. Mooney doesn't pause in his movement of running a finger down Sirius's hair, where the shoulder male is resting his head on his chest. Of what? He asks gently, patiently. Sirius closes his eyes tightly. He doesn't even know where to start. He's scared of everything. He's scared he's going to look at Regulus and see Wahlberger. He's scared Regulus is going to be horrible, nasty, the bigot he left behind. He's scared he's going to prove Sirius right. Yet he's also scared he's going to prove Sirius wrong. He's scared Regulus is going to be different, good, damaged from the years he spent alone in Grimmauld Place. He's scared it's going to be his fault. He's scared to be faced with the consequences of his actions. He's convinced himself for 9 years that he did the right thing. When James got home after that night with Regulus and he came barging in telling Sirius it had to be him that reached out to Regulus, implying that something happened to his younger brother between the ages of 15 and 18. The thought is consuming Sirius like a poison traveling through his bloodstream. All the feelings Sirius buried so deep after you ran away, all the worry and hatred and hurt he locked away because it was easier to pretend life in Grimmauld didn't exist than face the fact his parents abused him and his little brother was still there. Reckless was so cruel by the time Sirius left. The boy in that house wasn't his little brother anymore. Gone was the cute, compassionate, sensitive, and kind boy Sirius grew up watching over. Instead, he was replaced by a parrot of their parents, snarling and scowling, looking at Sirius like he was the dirt beneath his shoe, down his nose like Walburga and Orion did. Reckless hated him, hated everything he rebelled against his parents for. He was happy there. He was their favorite. Regulus wouldn't have come with him anyways. Sirius does the only thing he knows. He throws himself into work for the next 5 days, so preoccupied with designs and clients and tattooing that he doesn't grant himself any time to think about anything else. It works well for the first 4 days. Sirius spends every waking moment at the tattoo shop. He does overtime by the mile, staying so late some nights that Mooney and James turn up to drag him home from his 13-hour days. He's exhausted, run himself dry and combative, and they tell him to stop. He doesn't want to stop. He wants to work until his fingers bleed, and he's so tired he doesn't have time to think. The method works swimmingly until Wednesday rolls around. Frank is getting a tattoo on his arm, and Sirius, of course, was happy to oblige when he agreed to do the design and the work months ago. Of course, he wasn't banking on doing the tattoo 24 hours before he was going to be seeing Regulus for the first time properly in almost 10 years. He's been tattooing for hours. It's a complex piece, and Sirius enjoyed designing it. Around him, Frank chats to Peter, who's waiting for them to finish so the two of them can hang out afterwards. Sirius zones out, barely paying attention to the conversation spinning around him. He tries to focus as much as he can on the task at hand, but his mind keeps drifting to the upcoming daunting events. He can't believe he's going to be doing it. He can't believe he's going to be sitting down and speaking to Regulus. When Sirius ran away all those years ago, he remembers promising himself he'd have nothing to do with a single member of the Black family ever again. Alphard reached out a few times, but Sirius ignored him until he stopped. He was so terrified that any contact with a single person from his family would lead to Walburga and Orion finding him. He never imagined in a million years that he'd bump into Regulus again, that Regulus would find James and Effie first, that he'd know Mooney, that he'd move back to London and change his name. Honestly, Sirius didn't know what he expected to happen to Regulus. The only plausible outcome he assumed for his younger brother was to follow the family line and go into the law like their parents always planned for the both of them. Sirius never expected his brother to come back into his life and cause it all to fall apart. Though Sirius knows the destruction of his life is partly his own fault. He should have told his friends about his younger brother. He didn't intend to keep him a dirty little secret. It just happened. He just wanted to keep the things that happened behind the walls of Grimmauld Place secret, and Regulus got caught in crossfire. He wonders how things might have been different. How his life would have been changed if the domino effects never happened. If he told them all about his younger brother from the start. What would have changed? Everything okay, Sirius? His head snaps up from where he's hunched over Frank's arm. The other boy is looking at him, and Sirius has to shake himself. What? Yeah, of course. Yes, why? Frank raises an eyebrow. Aside from you being unsteadily quiet, the answer you just gave makes me all the more concerned. If you're good to be tattooing me right now. Sirius opens his mouth to reply, but all that comes out is a breathy exhale. How is he meant to answer that? Oh, it's nothing to worry about, buddy. I'm just a bit mentally preoccupied with the fact that tomorrow afternoon I have to sit across my younger brother, whom I abandoned 9 years ago alone in the house with our two abusive parents, and I've managed to convince myself for 9 years I did the brave right thing. But now everyone is making me question if my brother is the demonic asshole I remember, or if I was just a massive cunt for leaving him. He can't say that. It turns out, he doesn't have to. Peter beats him to it. He's meeting his brother properly for the first time in 9 years tomorrow, and he's freaking it. Sirius, his head snaps up. Thankfully, he instinctively pulls his hands from the tattooing needle away from Frank's arm at the same time. Peter! What? Peter shrugs, unfazed. Frank's right, man. You're acting skittish as fuck, and you're currently in control of the very permanent tattoo needle pressing against his skin. The guy deserves to know. Sirius groans, shaking his head and looking back down. Fuck, man, Frank breathes. 9 years. Yeah, Sirius admits quietly. Haven't seen him since I was 16. On good terms or bad terms? Sirius sighs. Bad. Very bad. Your fault? No, Sirius says, then pauses. At least, I don't think so. It's complicated. Siblings are, mate. Frank agrees, nodding slightly. I remember when Alice had to comfort Lily of her bitch of a sister a few years back. Honestly, I'm so happy I'm an only child sometimes. Having siblings sounds like a right pain. Lily Evans? Pete asks. Yeah, she cut Lily off when she moved to London. It was quite sad, really. I think it was all jealousy, to be honest. Her sister didn't like her becoming a nurse and moving to London, basically doing well for herself. She cut Lily out of her life, but not before she said some pretty nasty shit. Fucking hell, Peter whistles. Must suck to suddenly be cut out of someone's life. Sirius stiffens, glancing up to see Peter, if Peter is looking at him. He is. Brilliant. Good to know what Peter's opinion on the matter is, as subtle as he dishes it out. Maybe your sister had good reasons, Sarah says to Peter. Truthfully, he doesn't doubt Lily's sister had no good reason to cut Lily off other than her own consuming jealousy that she was succeeding in something. Sirius says that to Peter as a hidden translation of, maybe I had good reason to do what I did. I can't think of anything that would ever make me cut my siblings off. Peter shrugs, seeming unbothered, but Sirius can read between the lines. He sees the stiffness in Peter's shrug, the way he's crossed his arms over his chest, how he looks Sirius dead in the eye as he speaks. Even if they turned into the biggest assholes in the world, I'd never leave them behind. That's what siblings are for, right? Unconditional love? Every family's different, Sirius replies coldly. You didn't get this offensive the last time Peter did this in Mooney's hospital room, but this time Peter has decided to do it in front of company. Um, are we still talking about Lily and the sister? Frank asks. Sirius looks at him, closing his eyes and forcing himself to relax. Sorry, Frank. Right, Frank says slowly. He looks at Sirius, smiling softly. I'm sure tomorrow will go alright, mate. 9 years is a long time, but you've got all each other now, right? You got make up for lost time. Yeah, Sirius replies thickly. Right. The rest of the tattoo, Sirius is silent. Frank and Peter chat around him, but he zones out. He just focuses on making sure he gets Frank's work done right, and not allowing his hands to shake despite the tremors twitching in his body. When he's done, Frank is beaming. He stares at it, spouting compliments and cheers in the mirror. When he disappears to use the toilet, Sirius spins around to Peter. Pete, what the fuck? Sirius hisses. Seriously? What the fuck was that? I thought we were all good. We are, Peter nods, climbing off the table he's been sat on. I just wanted to remind you that a generalized opinion when it comes to siblings, strange or not. I didn't need reminding. Sirius snaps. You did, and I'm going to keep reminding you until I'm blue in the face, mate, Peter replies. Sirius runs a hand through his hair in frustration, barely resisting the tugging harshly at the ends. Look, Wormtail, I know how you feel about this. Me and Regulus, it's not the same for you and your siblings. True, Peter interrupts. And I won't deny that my home circumstances were nothing like yours either. But out of all of the Marauders, I am the only one who understands what it's like to have siblings. I could never imagine cutting one of them off, no matter who they beginning to become. I was 16, Cyrus replies, voice small, ashamed. Peter just suddenly looks slightly guilty. His face softens, shoulders relaxing. Yeah, mate, I'm not blaming you for getting out there, running as fast as you could the moment you get the chance. I'm just reminding you that the person you left behind is still allowed to be angry, no matter who he was beginning to act like. Sirius closes his eyes and drops down in a chair with a huff. He feels exhausted. Bones as heavy as lead and muscles aching as if he's ran 100 marathons in the last day. I need to go. Good luck tomorrow, yeah? Text me if you need anything. And if you don't need anything, then text me what happens. Peter says, and once Sirius glances up with an unimpressed look, the smaller boy grins and shrugs. I'm invested in drama now. Honestly, I reckon it'll be more interesting than when Jennifer Lawrence's nudes got leaked. Sirius rolls his eyes. You're ridiculous. And incredibly mean. You love me, Peter grins, clapping him on the shoulder. See you, Pat. The day of Thursday comes with overcast. Sirius planned to lay in to sleep as much of the morning away so he doesn't spend the hours leading up to 2 o'clock thinking himself sick. Of course, the one time his body decides it doesn't want to take advantage of the free morning, he's awake at dawn. In fact, he's up before James, which is a crime in itself, as the other boy is almost always up with sunrise every single morning. Sirius is on his third cup of coffee by the time James surfaces. The other boy seems startled to see Sirius curled up on the sofa, cup in hand, staring into space. Pat, he asks, how long have you been up? Few hours, Sirius murmurs back. He sounds as hollow as he feels. Couldn't sleep? Sirius shakes his head. James sits down beside him, looking at him with eyes crinkled with concern and worry. It's gonna be okay, mate. It's not, Sirius whispers. It's going to be horrible. Yes, but it will be worth it, James replies. You two need to talk. You need to hash out whatever happened between the two of you. It's killing you both. It's been killing you both. You're brothers. You're all the family either of you to have. We're not brothers anymore, James, Sirius confesses. We haven't been brothers in a long time. What today is going to do is confirm that. You don't have to walk away hugging and loving each other again. You just need to hear each other out. You need to see what you did to each other, how you're both hurt. You need to both realize the villains in your story is your parents, not each other. James says, he sighs. I've heard both sides' parts. You told me everything, and so has Regulus. Trust me, you've both been hurt by another. This is all stemmed from a miscommunication in that house that has festered and developed. You think I abandoned him, Sirius says, and he stares James dead in the eye, begging him, daring him to admit it. James takes a moment to reply. Yes, I do, Pat. I think you left your little brother in that house with your abusive parents. And I think Regulus has every right to be angry about that, James says, and Sirius feels his composure crumble. But I also think that you were 16 years old, that the relationship between you and Regulus was already falling apart, that he was acting like your parents and fighting you. I think you were hurt, alone, and saw an opening to get out and took it. And I will keep telling you until I'm out of breath that I'm so fucking proud that you got out. You escaped them, Pat. But, James sighs, but you have to face the consequences that you escaping left him there alone. He's going to be angry, James says. You can't blame him from that part. You need to hear him out because he went through some pretty messed up stuff after you left. The coffee in his stomach turns to stone. What happened? James shakes his head. That's for Regulus to tell you, not me. I'm just telling you that this so you're pacing your end with him. You need to look at him and see your brother, not your parents. Last time I knew him, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. James smiled sadly. If you get to know him now, you can. James makes sure Sirius only drinks tea after that cup of coffee. He makes him some breakfast, shoves him into the shower, and when he comes out, he drags Sirius to do some food shopping with him. It's a generous attempt at distraction, but Sirius isn't really listening to James as they walk around the store and put items in the trolley. It kills a few hours at least. When they get back, James makes him more tea, denying him more coffee, and forces Sirius to have some lunch. Despite the morning moving slow and dragging, Sirius feels like he blinks and it's time to leave. He finds Nova Cafe easily enough. When he gets there, he hides around the corner and has a cigarette in an attempt to calm his nerves. When it doesn't work, he has another three until he feels like he's going to gag on another toke. Walking up to the shop front is hard. His heart is racing so hard he's worried people will see the pulsating of his chest. His hands shake when they're stuffed in his leather jacket pockets, and the rest of it is vibrating so bad he's worried his legs will give out under him. The light reflecting on the windows makes it impossible to have a clear view of inside the cafe, and the simple hurdle feels serious with dread. He can't see if Regulus is already inside. He has no extra time to prepare if he is, and he can't tell until he walks in. He has to do the awkward look around, and if Regulus is there, he then has to walk to the table with his legs so shaky he's sure he'll miss a step or simply collapse in a heap on the floor. Regulus isn't inside. Sirius can't tell if that brings him comfort or not. On one hand, he gets to choose the table, and Regulus has to come to him. On the other hand, Regulus being late might mean he's not turning up at all. Sirius stands awkwardly in the cafe doorway. Should he sit down and wait to order a drink with Regulus? Would it make it weird to go to the till together? Would he just get a drink and sit down? Would be too rude. And should he get Regulus one too for when he gets it? No, Regulus might not like that. He doesn't know what Regulus would drink, although surely he can't go wrong with a simple or flat white, unless he doesn't like milk. And then Sirius gets him an Americano, but what if he doesn't like black coffee? What if he doesn't drink coffee at all? Sirius is sure James has taken him drinks from the Pettigrew Cafe before, but what if it's tea or hot chocolate? Sirius is flapping suddenly, feeling like a small child, unsure what to do. He shakes himself, noticing the barista behind the counter is staring at him. He orders himself a coffee and sits down. Minutes drag slower than a snail's pace. Sirius is getting twitchy by 10 past. Clammy palms ring together in his lap. He gets out his phone, fingers trembling against the screen. Sirius, 1411. He's not here. Sirius, 1411. Mooney, what do I do? Mooney, 1412. He's probably running late. James did say he had a night shift last night. Sirius, 1412. What if he's not running late and just standing me up? Mooney, 1415. Give him a chance, Pat. X. Sirius bites the inside of his cheek. Sirius, 1417. If he's not here by 25 past, I'm leaving. Mooney. 14, 17. Okay, darling. X. A few minutes later, the bell dings again, and Sirius looks up sharply, at this point only half expecting it to actually be Regulus. He jolts with surprise when it is. There, standing in the doorway, casually looking around the cafe, is his little brother. When their eyes meet, Regulus doesn't seem to shrink in their contact. He walks briskly, easily, steps bold with purpose. He seems more steady than Sirius feels as he drops in the opposite chair. Sirius feels both hot and cold all over. He forgets how to breathe, his entire focus on the man opposite him, with his stormy grey eyes staring at him with so much hatred, so much disgust. Are you getting a drink? He asks. No. The single, cold response that has Sirius almost rolling his eyes. This is going to go brilliantly. Silence settles between them again. The air is thick and suffocating around them. Sirius doesn't know where to look, so his eyes flick between his mug and the table to the person opposite of him. He's slightly struck how Regulus is in front of him, now presented in daylight in a calm cafe compared to the strident lights of a club. Looks so different yet so similar. Regulus used to be a cute kid, and that was a simple fact. He was all squishy cheeks, impossibly huge eyes, and had the cheekiest smile that never seemed to dampen when it was just the two of them. Now his little brother is all sharp lines, a cutting jaw, prominent cheekbones, eyes sharp and glaring daggers. His hair is longer too, more curly, and unsurprisingly less messy. It last years that they lived together, Regulus was just starting to learn how to contain his hair, despite their mother never letting it grow for very long for the curls to have much character. If Regulus looks hard enough, he can still see his little brother in there. He can still see the delicate slope of his nose that Sirius used to kiss when he was sad. He can still see the wild curls, jet black against his pale skin. He can still see the glitter in his eyes that sparkled when they were both happy and sad. He wondered if the smile was the same. He used to be so innocent back then, untainted by the world. But Regulus isn't smiling now. Instead, the younger boy is sitting stiff and straight, jaw clenched and eyes hard. He's staring at Sirius like he's angry to be here, like he's unsatisfied with the sight before him. Sirius supposes that shouldn't be much of a surprise. You look well, Sirius offers, despite the break in the tension practically squishing him. Regulus's eyes flit up and down him at the table. You look awful. Fuck's sake, Sirius mutters bitterly, rubbing the bridge of his nose in exasperation. Do you really have to... What are we doing here, Sirius? Regulus interrupts sharply. Did you invite me so we can play happy families again? So you can tell me how great your life was after you left me alone in that house to rot? Or are you going to tell me that you still hate me because somehow in your tiny, twisted little brain you believe I'm a mini version of our parents? Sirius stiffens, eyes locked hard on the person in front of him. That James didn't tell me anything. We don't talk about you. Sorry to burst your bubble. You and your life aren't even on my radar. Regulus snaps, words cold and mocking. Sirius wants to smack the expression of his snotty face. How dare he use his connection with James to ridicule Sirius? He had James first. James is his. He tells himself to stop. They're not here to talk about James. They're here to talk about the brotherhood they lost all those years ago and what happened since. Not that Sirius wants to know that. The last week has made him become worried his version of Regulus's life after Sirius' departure wasn't as rosy and glamorous as he had once thought. The pity in James's eyes, the anger and resentment when they ever lightly touched on why it should be serious to reach out instead of Regulus. James hasn't described specifically in words, but Sirius suspects that he knows a lot more about what Regulus's life of the Sirius have been like. Sirius doesn't know if he's ready to face that yet. I can see in your eyes you hate me, Regulus says. You used to look at me like I was Warburg or Ryan staring back at you. It wasn't hard to figure out you believed I was just like them. Weren't you? Regulus scoffs. Seriously, Sirius accuses. Because if I remember correctly, you sure spent a lot of time agreeing with the nasty, racist, bigoted shit that came out of the mouse. You really are stupid, aren't you? Regulus sneers. It probably didn't occur to you, as you seemed to enjoy aggravating them so much, but the only way to survive in that house was to agree. Sirius shakes head. I protected you so you didn't have to. You stopped protecting me a long time ago, Sirius. You just didn't realize it. That's not fair, you know it. Regulus rolls his eyes so hard, Sirius is surprised they come back to the center without getting stuck in the back of his head. You're insufferable, Regulus grumbles, and Sirius' patience snaps. And you're a piece of shit, he hisses. You've got everyone fucking fooled, but I'm the only one who knows what you are. And what, brother dearest, am I? Regulus draws. Considering you haven't spoken to me in 9 years, I'm intrigued to find out what your clear, hostile interpretation of me is. Have you forgotten what you were like when I left? Sirius asks. You were exactly like them. Everything nasty, racist, homophobic, horrible thing they said you fucking agreed with. Forgive me for trying to find a way to avoid mother's temper while I was stuck in that house alone. You weren't alone, I was still there. You weren't, Regulus snarls. You were always out. You never came home, and when you did, you immediately started arguing with them, riling them up. You made it worse. I was standing up to them. Why? Regulus scoffs. Why even try? All it ever got you was a fucking bruise for your troubles. Because I wasn't going to roll over and allow them to slander anything and everything. Their beliefs were unjustified, horrible. I wasn't going to sit and agree with them because I was weak. Regulus flinches, slowly leaning back. His gaze is murderous, shocked. He laughs softly, shaking his head. I always knew you thought I was weak. When it came to them, you weren't exactly the bravest. That's not fair, he snaps. If you were so strong, you wouldn't have ran away in the middle of the night like a child. They were killing me. And what about me? You were fine, Sir shouts, throwing his hands up in exasperation. They didn't hurt you anymore. You were exactly what they wanted. You were the fucking golden child, the perfect heir they always wanted. It was me they hated. I left because they were going to kill me. Is that what you believe? Ray's asks, voice suddenly breathless. After all these years, you're seriously telling me you thought I'd be fine? Of course, Sirius laughs humorously. They hadn't touched a hair on your head for years by the time I left. Regulus stares at him, his face all sharp lines, his shoulder tense and posture stiff. He looks at Sirius like he can't believe the words coming out of his mouth, like Sirius has suggested something so scandalous, so radical, that it's ridiculous to believe and state. Suddenly, Regulus shifts slightly. His eyes stay hard, but they droop slightly with pity and defeat. Did you know they blamed me when you ran away? They believed I helped you, that I knew why you went. Father thought he could beat it out of me. He did enough damage that I don't remember the first 3 days you weren't there. Regulus smiles grimly, tilting his head as if to say, What can you do? When they finally believed me when I told them I didn't know where you'd gone, they moved us to France so I couldn't do the same as you. Imagine that. Alone, isolated, stuck in France with our parents. They locked me up, serious. They wouldn't let me leave the house. You think they just moved on when you left? They were furious. I paid the fucking price for you. It didn't matter how much I tried to please them. Even if I was faking it, it wasn't enough anymore. They were constantly angry, constantly shouting. They were cunts before you left. When did you ever think they'd change after you? Sarah shakes his head. Either an argument or now. He's not sure, he said, suddenly spinning. There's no way. No fucking way. They couldn't have done that. He couldn't have done that. It was me they hated. Please tell me it's true. Tell me they didn't hurt you like that. No, serious. Rick shakes his head, tone mocking as if teasing a small child. They hated everything. We were just the easiest targets, and you running away gave them a single one. I had to sit like a waiting duck every day in that house, waiting for them to lose their shit and use me as a personal fucking punching bag. No, Sears whispers. His chest and stomach feel suddenly hollow. That can't be true. Regulus tilted his head, eyes hard and jaw set. Why? Because it ruins your fantasy about me. Because it destroys your justification for running away and keeping me a secret in that house. No! Sirius cries shrilly. Because you were supposed to be fine. You were becoming like them, and you were going to grow up and be safe and rich and become Orion the fucking second. Sorry to ruin your false premonition, heard sneers, leaning back in his chair. But life didn't exactly plan out like that. How bad? Sirius asks. The young boy frowns. What? How bad were they? In France. What did they do to you? I'm not telling you. Regulars. I wouldn't want to ruin your image of me any further. Sirius shrugs. You've already proven me wrong. Have I? Regulus asks. Because you're still looking at me like I'm the monster you believe I was destined to become. When I left, you were a horrible person. You hated me. You spoke to me like they did. You believed the things they did. Good to know I was that good of an actor. His draw sarcastically. Clearly, I'm in the wrong industry. Stop it, Regulus. Serious snaps. You can't tell me it was all acting. Regulus sighs heavily, bone deep. He looks out the window and says, It's surprising what people can do to avoid their mother using a wine glass or some weapon over the dinner table. It's not the confession that cuts deep, but the sudden, exhausted, dull, lifeless tone of his younger brother's voice. Regulus looks like the fight had drained out of him, like the strength to do anything is so agonizing. When the eyes meet over the table, Cyrus doesn't see Wilburger. He sees Rasselas. He sees the younger boy all those years ago, barely a teen, eyes tired, drained. I wasn't like you, Sirius. The only way for me to survive in that house was to pretend to agree. I didn't have friends to run to. In the end, I didn't even have you. I had myself, and even before you left, they were killing me. I had to adapt to survive. And every time you came home and antagonized them, it was another nail in the coffin. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't keep watching you get hurt when I wasn't strong enough to protect you, Regulus says. toneless, dead. Adapting was my form of survival, and I apologize if my performance was so grand that you couldn't see past the curtains of it. Suddenly, Reckless laughs. It's not humorous or light, but instead it's heavy, weighted, and forced. You know, he exhales, you've never hated you for running away. They would have killed you if you stayed around much longer. I was always relieved to know you were safe, even if it wasn't with me. Sirius can't speak above a whisper, throat thick and chest too tight. Why do you hate me then? The answer scares him. Of all the things Regulus has confessed today, of all the assumptions and beliefs of Sirius he has contradicted, the answer to this is what makes Sirius truly terrified. For years, Sirius hated Regulus for who he was becoming, or apparently who he was pretending to be. He assumed if Regulus was going to hate him for anything, it would be for running away and ruining everything, for being a disgrace. If he doesn't hate him for it, then what could it be? Because you left me behind, Regulus says, and Sirius's world officially stopped. You gave up on me. That's all I was reminded of in France. It wasn't the punches and the kicks and threats that buried me in France. It was the reminders that no physical wound from them could ever come close to the emotional one from you. You giving up on me killed me slowly, Sirius. Sirius trembles. But you got out. It's a poor excuse. He knows. It doesn't matter now if Regulus got out. What matters is what happened to him before. What Sirius allowed to happen. I almost didn't, Regulus admits, his voice barely coming out strong enough to be heard. The last wound I got in France didn't come from them. It's like the air abruptly sucked out of the room. Sirius goes to gasp, but jolts when he finds there is nothing to take into his lungs. For shaking, he asks, Who? I didn't have anywhere to run like you did, Grace interrupts. I didn't have a family to take me in, or friends to wipe my tears for me. I had a knife in a bathroom and Creature to stitch me up again. All those years, Sirius had relied heavily on the Marauders and the Potters to keep him afloat from the memories of Grimmauld Place drowning him. The Potters gave him a place to escape to, a warm home to hide and heal in. James, Remus, and Peter gave him a safe space to be himself, to learn to love himself, accept him. While Berger and Orion didn't have a chance to get their talents into him after he met the Marauders. They provided him with the life he was being denied in that house, in that family. Without them, Sirius wouldn't be here today. Reckless had none of that. He had nothing, no one, and when he didn't have Sirius, he gave up. His only resolve, or the madness and pain he was subjected to, was to remove himself completely and definitely. And Sirius would have never known. It would have been years at least before he ever found out it if Creature hadn't saved him. Hercules was ready to go, and Sirius wasn't there to stop him. I believe we're done here, Hercules says, already standing. It was a pleasure, Sirius. Let's not doing it again. Sirius, already cracking hard, drops to the floor. He jolts, hands jerking like he wants to reach out and drag Regulus back down. Regulus! Don't beg, Sirius. It's beneath you. Regulus huffs, brushing off his trouser. Suddenly, he smiles, but it's not warm or friendly. Looks like I'm making us even. You left 9 years ago. I'm leaving now. No! Sirius croaks, his eyes burn with tears. Not like this. Not now. You can't leave now. Not after. Please, you. Do what you do best, brother. Pretend I don't exist and stay the fuck away from me. And with that, Regulus walks out of the cafe. Within a second, Sirius's composure is completely in crumbles. What has he done? Alright, that's the end of that chapter. You might have noticed that I didn't upload last week. That was because I wasn't finished with this one yet, and I usually am able to do it like last minute. But well, my last weekend was quite busy. I was home to sleep and a couple of more hours, but not enough to really sit down and record a 2 hour recording. Um, so yeah, uh, I hope you enjoyed. It was a long one. Um, Thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow or next week, depending on if you also follow my other series. Bye!